we'll talk about a couple of strategies for behavior management. The basic training in the camp or program that you will be participating in likely has site-specific guidelines that they'd like you to follow for behavior management, but I'm just going to provide a couple other methods that might be helpful as well. So we're going to talk about three different tactics to help manage behavior, which will be sensory-based interventions, implementing zones of regulation, and facilitation of social skills. But again, in general, follow the practices of your camp or organization. It's important that before the program begins that you outline clear expectations and consequences and rewards for your participants so they have that understanding of exactly what's expected of them and what will happen if they don't follow the expectations. So sensory-based intervention is often used for children who have increased issues with behavioral regulation, and this can often be due to sensory processing and impaired emotional regulation. So you may see this result in tantrums, inattention, aggression, self-injurious behaviors, and repetitive behaviors. What a sensory-based intervention does is provide tactile, proprioceptive, and or vestibular stimulation to facilitate the regulation of behaviors. So essentially, providing that sensory input helps the child to calm down and regulate their own sensory processing system. This intervention will induce positive changes in their motor planning, socialization, and play. So tactile stimulation is the sensation of touch. So to provide tactile stimulation, you can offer sensory activities such as the sensory box in the top left photo that can be calming and help a child regulate their sensory system. Or you can apply different touch sensations such as hot, cold, soft, hard through massage with pressure, touch therapy, and brushing. The most benefits that tactile stimulation will have, it will be in the classroom or in sitting activities, and it will help with inattention and socialization. Or if a child is just feeling very overstimulated and wants that touch sensation, such as in the sensory box, then you can provide that for them to help them regulate their behavior and calm down. Proprioceptive stimulation is the stimulation that activates muscles and joints through movements and muscle contractions. So you can provide this through a weighted vest or blanket, as you see in the photos. And this stimulation will generate sensory input that can result in reduced distractions and repetitive behaviors in the classroom or during sitting activities or just in general. And another way that you can provide this proprioceptive input is through encouraging the child to give themselves a hug and give themselves a squeeze, or giving them squeezes up their arm, just providing that stimulation to help them calm down. Vestibular stimulation is related to balance and is associated with moving in a particular speed or direction. So to provide vestibular stimulation, you can encourage the child to go on a swing, sit on a therapy ball, use a wiggle seat, provide foot fidgets, but essentially it just targets inattention, aggression, and any other inappropriate behaviors. And providing this stimulation in these activities kind of gives them that input that they're seeking. So if a child is running around, spinning, bumping into things, bumping into other children, running into doors, walls, crashing a lot on the ground, then that's usually a pretty good indicator that they're seeking vestibular input. So that's when you can support them by giving them tools that provide that input, which is what we just talked about with the swing, therapy ball, wiggle seats, and etc. The next strategy that we're going to talk about for behavior management is the zones of regulation. The zones of regulation were created by Leah Coopers, an occupational therapist, It is a cognitive behavioral approach to help a child regulate their feelings, energy, and sensory needs. The information on this slideshow was taken essentially directly from her website, in which it kind of outlines the general aspects of the zones of regulation. So the zones of regulation consist of the blue zone, green zone, yellow zone, and red zone. Essentially, what you do when applying this is you're helping the child to identify their emotions by categorizing each emotion into a zone. It's important for them to understand that all zones are okay, but just at certain times. So the overall curriculum teaches self-regulation, helping the child to achieve the preferred state for what is appropriate to the situation they're in. Help the child to identify triggers, so what makes them act out and why. Help them to identify what specific coping strategies work for them and help them to achieve emotional regulation and manage their emotions. Another aspect of it is identifying the size of a problem and the response that it should elicit. And it introduces the concept that the size of your reaction should match the size of the problem. And then so not only identifying this, but also what strategies can you use to solve these problems and to regulate your emotions in response to them. And then also labeling expected versus unexpected behavior. So that helps the child to understand how their behavior specifically affects the people around them. So breaking down the zones of regulation, again, this is from the website, just an overview of the curriculum. The blue zone is for emotions that are low states of alertness or arousal. So when someone is in the blue zone, you're in control but have very low energy emotions. And the green zone is a calm state of alertness, which is needed in the classroom and during sit-down activities. Yellow is a heightened state of alertness, which is okay in the right situations, again, as they all are, but you still have some control of your actions. So you could, when explaining this to a child, you can talk about how this is okay at recess or when participating in sports at camp, or a lot of the outdoor camp activities would be the yellow zone, in which the child's being silly, excited, having fun, running around. And then finally, the red zone is an extremely heightened state of intense emotions. So in this zone, the child is no longer able to control their emotions or reactions. So this could be when they're super overly excited, or also during a meltdown, which again is okay in certain times when it matches the situation. And it's important when you're explaining this for the child to understand that all the zones are okay at certain times, but you're just going to help them identify what situations call for which reactions. So once they understand the zones and what is appropriate to each situation, you can talk about when their mood doesn't match a situation, what can they do to help them match the situation? So whether it be going up a zone or going down a zone, you can talk specifically with them about what works for them and how they can implement it. So to go up a zone, so if a child is in, for example, the blue zone and you're going outside to play, so that would be a situation to move up to a higher zone, so engaging in physical activity or a game, interacting with peers, doing jumping jacks, using sensory tools to just increase your engagement and attention to the task. Some examples to go down a zone, so if a child is in the red zone and is looking for ways to calm down, they can practice deep breathing, taking a walk, find somebody to vent to, listen to music, those deep pressure squeezes that we talked about, or use other sensory tools to calm their nervous system. So some sensory tools, we talked about some, but others might be fidget balls, Theraputty, sensory box, weighted blanket or vest, wiggle seat, noise-canceling headphones, doing some wall push-ups to provide input, carrying heavy things, jumping, burrowing into pillows, jumping into cushions, or wrapping up in blankets are all ways that a child can calm down. But again, you just want to speak help them find the strategy that works for them. The concept of size of the problem that goes along with this curriculum is when something's happening, you can ask the child specifically, what size is this problem? And what size reaction does it warrant? And then if they're overreacting, having too big of a reaction, helping them understand how that would make others feel. So to define the size of the problem, a small problem would involve a small number of people and does not require the help of an adult. So you're really helping them to understand that if they're able to identify something as a small problem, then that's something that they should be able to solve by themselves, and that only warrants a small reaction. A medium problem would be shared by more people and may require the help of an adult, but can be resolved. So an example of this would be if another kid was bullying them, then that's when they would want to get the help of an adult to mediate that problem. A big problem would be shared by many people, requiring the help of an adult, and there's no easy solution. So that might be if a part of the playground breaks while they're on it, so they need to go let an adult know that that's broken so that they can get that fixed, but there's not going to be an easy fix that happens immediately. And then a huge problem, which warrants a huge reaction, would be an emergency in which emergency services are required. So in addition to, I'll attach the link to the website to see more examples of how you can apply this curriculum, but as well as providing examples, it can also be helpful to practice applying these zones and sides of the problem when reading stories and watching movies, just really continuing to incorporate it and having the child continue to increase their awareness and be able to identify sides of the problem and what emotions characters are having or that they're having so that they can apply it better in their lives. Finally, to facilitate social skills to help with potential future behavior issues, you really want to get to know your participants, help them initiate conversations with each other, guide questions to help them find things in common, provide gentle correction when needed. If you're present when two children are playing and they are disagreeing, then you can again incorporate size of the problem and help them regulate their emotions and think about how they're making the other child feel. And so really just encouraging them to consider the perspectives of others and to practice empathy. The next subject we're going to talk about, this kind of leads into, which is peer interaction and just how to facilitate that and help children understand each other and to communicate as best as they can.